Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is the 2 p.m. show. Casemiro dressing room leaks. How true are they? How much can we read into this story? Because there is an article coming out of the MEN, leaks from the dressing room regarding Casemiro and his poor spell of form. That doesn't really paint Casemiro in the best light and doesn't paint the dressing room in the best light either. But is there actually any truth in this? Because we know not every single report is 100% accurate. And to be honest with you, reading through it, I just kind of want to debunk it, really. I want to come out here and I want to debunk it because obviously it's a big story. Leaks coming out the dressing room surrounding Casemiro and his form, and I actually don't believe it's true. You can have your opinion, you might believe it, I don't believe it, we're going to talk about it, and also some news coming out around the Antony story with Fenerbahce as well, the Turkey story with Antony. So I keep seeing loads of pile on Antony. Last season, I get it. This season, the guy hasn't played. It feels like he is sort of a bit of a scapegoat now. Wasn't a good signing for that amount of money, but it does feel like he's getting scapegoated for certain performances when he's not even been in the team. But anyway, guys, get in the comments down below. Really want to get into this Casemiro stuff first and foremost. Seen a lot of people commenting on the thumbnail. By the way, whoever did that thumbnail did Casemiro so dirty, like so dirty. But also, that was my face after the Liverpool game. That'll be my face if Ugarte doesn't start at the weekend. That is a mood. Casemiro on that thumbnail is an absolute mood. But anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in, getting your comments. We're going to get into this news and get into this article. So the article was written by Samuel Luckhurst in the MEN. And this is what is coming out. It is, teammates feel that Casemiro's decline at Manchester United has become a consequence of the club's own struggles. Dressing room sources say Casemiro, a 5-time Champions League winner with Real Madrid, didn't sign up for a second season to attempt to qualify in the Champions League, which proved to be beyond Manchester United last term. So the article is basically saying, I mean, it insinuates that players have leaked that Casemiro doesn't want to be fighting for a Champions League spot. You know, he thinks that Manchester United would be in the Champions League, the players unmotivated. And I just don't see the truth in this. Has Casemiro declined? He absolutely has. Of course he has. Like, no one can excuse the form, hang on a second. Hang on a second there. No one can excuse the form that Casemiro has had. But Casemiro literally left Real Madrid to start a new challenge. When Casemiro came to Manchester United, we weren't in the Champions League that first year, were we? I don't think we were in the Champions League with Erik ten Hag. No, Erik ten Hag in his first year was not in the Champions League. We were in the Europa League. So he knew he wasn't competing for the Champions League then. Last season, obviously, didn't end up getting to the Champions League. We did get into the Europa League, thankfully, due to the FA Cup. But I don't believe that Casemiro expected to be coming into Manchester United and be competing in the Champions League every year. He knew the state that Manchester United were in. I don't think the player's unmotivated, and I don't think anyone from the dressing room has leaked this out. Bruno Fernandes came out after the game at Liverpool saying, we're not pointing fingers, Casemiro knows what he has to do, he's more experienced than me, he's an experienced player, he understands the criticism that comes with poor performances, he'll bounce back. Ten Hag's backed him up in that sense as well. So the dressing room is coming out from the captain publicly how everybody feels about Casemiro, and there's always rumours behind the scenes that despite the fact obviously Casemiro isn't playing well, he is a complete leader, he's completely driven, he's obsessed with football, he's obsessed with statistics. I don't see Casemiro just being like, you know what lads, nah, I can't be bothered anymore, that's why I'm poor. You know, not Champions League football, not going to bother. I don't see that. I generally just think his body is not fit enough at this moment in time to handle the strain that he's put on that midfield. Because he's gotten older, that happens with footballers. And I'm not saying that Casemiro isn't fit enough to be a footballer, because I think he absolutely is. I think the issue is the system that he's playing in. Not only do you have to be physically elite, like Casemiro isn't 26, 27, 28 anymore. You know, he's coming towards he's coming towards not the end of his career, but it is on a downwards trajectory now. So I do think he struggles to keep up with it. I don't think it's in a case of he can't be bothered. So I don't believe this story. I don't believe it on multiple levels. I don't believe that players are leaking out this information. I don't believe it personally. And I don't believe that this information is actually true. I don't think Casemiro is playing the way he is because Manchester United aren't in the Champions League. I just don't. But get in the comments down below what you guys think. A lot of people in the comments have contradicting opinions. So Hardeep says, I agree with you, Beth, for the first time. First time for everything. And that's a slight dig. It's like a backhanded compliment, but I'll take it. Not everybody disagrees. Not everybody agrees and everything. Cody W says, this is straight up drama. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think it's the international break. I think there's a lack of news out there, and I just personally don't believe this story. I just don't. I don't see where it would come from. I don't see why it would come out. I don't see why players would be leaking. It's a bad look for players if they are doing that. I doubt they are. And I doubt they're leaking against one of the teammates that apparently is very well liked in the Manchester United dressing room, and he's actually one of the leaders in that dressing room, despite his form. And I also don't think that that is Casemiro's mindset. I can go on here and I can complain about the way Casemiro passes the ball. I can complain about the fact that I don't think he has the engine anymore. I can complain about the fact I think he's sloppy on the ball. I can complain about the fact that I don't think he's good enough to be starting for Manchester United. But I'm not going to come on here and start questioning Casemiro's mentality, a guy that's won 5 Champions Leagues at Real Madrid. You know, he is a proper professional, and he's got a top mentality. That is the word that comes out of that dressing room on a regular basis. That's what I hear. So I don't see him as a player being like, no, I'm going to give up now because Manchester United aren't in the Champions League this year, when he literally joined Manchester United when we weren't in the Champions League. It just doesn't make sense for me. So that's why I can't see it being true in any sort of level. And to be honest with you, to stop these stories coming out, I mean, how do you stop these stories coming out? Because I feel like it is drama, like the chat has just said. I feel like it is just kind of a non-story, and I feel like it is something that's put out there to kind of, you know, just stir the pot a little bit. A lot of people aren't happy with Casemiro at the moment. A lot of fans aren't happy with Casemiro. It's an easy story to kind of put out there. It is. Let's be honest with you. Let's be honest. Like, Casemiro is an easy target right now. I mean, there's been talks about the dressing room under Ten Hag before. That is another easy target. It's an easy story to kind of put out there, but I just don't see how there can be any truth in it. And I don't think it's good for these stories to be circulating when Manchester United are in a position where we don't need division in that dressing room. I mean, there's division in the fan base, but I don't like the fact that there's division in the fan base. I think as a fan base, you can be Erik Ten Hag in, you can be Erik Ten Hag out, you can be on the fence, you can have different opinions, but you can respect people's opinions if they're not presenting them in a disrespectful way. If people disagree and they agree, that's football, that's life. Everybody's got different opinions. That's the way it is. But you can do that without there being division, and not only the fan base, but I think the main thing is, I think the dressing room. We all need to be together. The fan base needs to be together, because this has been a really poor start to the season for Manchester United. And the last thing you need is kind of stuff coming out being like, oh yeah, Casemiro, you know, he's playing the way he is because Manchester United aren't in the Champions League and this isn't the challenge you wanted to take on. Well, he could have left in the summer if he wanted to, but there was no one there. There was no one there to come and get him. You know, even Saudi Arabia didn't really want to go and get him. So I don't see that being true. Casemiro never pushed for a move. There absolutely, I think, is truth in the story that Casemiro feels like he's exposed in the current system, because I can understand that. If I was playing in that system, I'd feel exposed. Any midfielder, I think, would feel exposed in that midfield. We've talked about it multiple times before. There's so many gaps in it. People get left on their own all of the time. Kobe Mainoo's left stranded. Casemiro's left stranded. Casemiro, as poor as he's been, and I do absolutely believe you put in somebody who is more physically able into that midfield, they definitely do a better job, but they still become exposed. For example, when I think Ugarte comes in, I don't think he'll solve our problems 100%. I think he'll be a massive improvement. I really do. But I don't think it completely solves it. I think the system has to change for it to be solved. I think there needs to be more bodies in that midfield. So Casemiro will feel like he's being exposed in there, and it's happening. It happened last season, and there were stories coming out about it then that Casemiro didn't feel like the system suited him and he felt like it exposed his weaknesses. And the same is happening now. I do think Casemiro's weaknesses are being exposed in that system, and he can understand that. But I don't think Casemiro's saying, you know, I don't think Casemiro's playing the way he is because he's not motivated. I I don't see that mentality from someone who's won 5 Champions Leagues in their career at Real Madrid. I just don't. People might say, well, he's on 300 grand a week now at Manchester United and he's on his long contract, so does he really have to be motivated? Players that have won that many things in their career don't just give up that easily. From my opinion, outside looking in, a player that's won 5 Champions Leagues, a player that's been surrounded by players with elite mentalities, Cruz, Modric, Ronaldo, Varane, them sort of players, they don't just think, oh, you know what, I'm on 300 grand a week now, I'm going to put my feet up. Manchester United is just, you know, it's just a DOS for me. That's not the way Casemiro is. You can see it. And you can hear it from behind the scenes. Apparently, he's absolutely obsessed at looking at the numbers, looking at the statistics. And he was really frustrated last season when his form was the way it is. I don't think Casemiro is going out there thinking, no, I can't be bothered. I think his body just can't keep up with it right now, and especially not in that system. So, arguably, I think where the truth lies is I think Casemiro probably does feel exposed by the system, and he feels like maybe the system isn't getting the best out of him. But I don't think the reason he's poor is because the club isn't at the point where he expected it to be. You know, if you're a player, you've got to look yourself in the mirror and say, how do I get myself better? And this story just doesn't paint anyone in a good light. It makes Casemiro look like he's unmotivated, which isn't a good look, and I don't think that's true. And also, it makes the dressing room look like they're leaking against each other, and senior members of the dressing room as well, which I also don't think is true, especially this early on in the season. We'll get all of your comments in. Also, there might be a little bit of Goldbridge spoke about this on a show the other day, and I do think there is a lot of stories getting on Erik ten Hag's back at the minute. There's a lot of stories getting on Erik ten Hag's back, and this doesn't directly name Erik ten Hag, but you know, when you talk about the not being able to qualify for the Champions League last season, and that, you know, we are, you know, in a poor position, and just negativity, you know, surrounding the start of the season. There is so many headlines coming out negatively around Manchester United at the moment, and partially I do get it. Like, I understand some of it. Like, articles and people talking about how poorly Manchester United have started the season in terms of performance, completely get it. It's valid and it's correct. Let's call a spade a spade. Manchester United have not been good enough this season. But stories that kind of twist the truth and exaggerate negativity, that's where I'm like, does that really need to be the case, or is it just kind of jumping on the Manchester United, you know, kind of agenda against Erik ten Hag? And that's where you've got to kind of look at it, because I mean, I saw all that stuff around, you know, Erik ten Hag's another loss of the season when it was a testimonial game, which I didn't even bother even looking into because I knew it was rubbish. But there will be people that are just kind of scrolling on their phone or kind of looking around, and they'll start to like believe that stuff and read into that stuff. For example, my dad, we call him a dinosaur. He's not the techiest on social media, right? If he was scrolling through and he saw like 5 articles being like, Erik ten Hag this, Erik ten Hag that, you know, loses another game, my dad might just look at that and like kind of believe it, because he's not like, you know, well into the social media world. And that's where I think what these kind of headlines kind of look at, the people that are just going to fall into that and read it and believe it, and it kind of just, it feeds into that negativity, which as United fans, we can talk about how poor United have been the start of the season, because we have been, and we do need to improve. But I feel like we also need to get behind the team. It's 3 games in. It's 3 games in. Yes, it's been poor, but there's so many games left to play, and ultimately, doesn't everybody want us to win? Don't they want the manager to do well? Of course you can criticise, of course you can talk about facts, performance, facts, but stuff that is kind of hearsay and stuff that is like, you know, blurring the line of where's the truth, that's the stuff where I'm like, do we really need to be going over this and talking about this again? Because it might not even be true. But get in the comments down below what you guys think. LMP22KZ says, I think Luckhurst needs a season-long ban from any involvement with Manchester United, needs to start being hard on this guy. Well, you can have your own opinions. I'm not talking negatively like that around other journalists. I mean, I can talk about the article, and I don't think the article is correct, but I'm not going to come in on here and personally attack anybody. Everybody has their own different styles. But the one thing I can say is I don't think there's truth in the article. I don't. and you can all have your opinions on that and what should happen with stuff like this, but there's claimed to be a source. I don't think the article's true. Get in the comments down below what you guys think. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about the Anthony story as well before, you know, we kind of wrap up on in terms of this international break. There has been a lot of pile-on onto Manchester United, and I feel like as United fans we kind of have to come out and defend that, even though it's hard to do because we have been so poor. But a little bit on the Anthony story, and this was coming from this article as well, the same article by the MEN, and it was that Fenerbahce manager Jose Mourinho is not interested in Anthony. That's coming from the MEN. We had the story yesterday. Apparently, you know, Anthony was pushing to go out on loan. We debunked that. Anthony's not pushing to go out on loan. He wants to stay and fight for his place at Manchester United. There was interest from Real Betis and there was interest from Turkey. So again, you know, I'm just going off based off what I know from Sam C reports, who reports from the United Stand, and I really trust his journalism and his sources and what he gets. From my point of view, again, I don't believe that to be true. I don't think it was that Fenerbahce manager Jose Mourinho is not interested in Anthony. What I heard was Anthony doesn't want to go out on loan. He wants to fight and play for Manchester United. And a lot of people won't want to hear that because a lot of people are fed up with Anthony and they feel like his time has run out. You know, you've got a sand timer, you've turned it round and all the sand has gone in. They feel like that with Anthony and they feel like he's had his last chance and does he deserve another chance? And I get people's cups are full with it. But Anthony's main priority is to fight and play for Manchester United. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because I did it on the 2 p.m. show yesterday. But with Anthony, he's not going anywhere. But again, this just feels like, you know, Fenerbahce manager Jose Mourinho didn't want Anthony. Well, actually, it was Anthony who wanted to stay and fight for his place at Manchester United. I don't know too much about the contact between Turkey, if there was any contact, but what I heard was it was Anthony that was fighting to stay at Manchester United. So again, it's just like, it paints the image that nobody's interested in our players, nobody, you know, God, Fenerbahce wanting Anthony, that would never happen. It kind of paints that image, and some people might agree with that, but from what I've heard, Erik ten Hag wanted depth because obviously we've lost Sancho and we've lost Pellistri, and Anthony wanted to stay and fight for his place, and he wants that chance to make his mark at Manchester United. Whether that'll happen, we'll have to wait and see this season. What I would say is he'll have to do a lot to change fans' opinions, that's for sure, because I have seen a lot of stuff coming out around Anthony and he's barely even played a minute this season. Patrick Jahayes says Ten Hag is getting the same treatment as Maguire has been getting from Mark, picking out how bad he was game after game and made him hated by the fans. I don't think anybody makes anybody hate anyone. I think everybody should be entitled to their own opinion. And I don't think you should, I think it's very black and white to say this person's made everybody else hate someone. And I think hate is a very, very, very strong word that I don't like to use in my life because I don't like to talk about, I don't like hate to be part of my life, to be honest with you. It's negativity. So I don't think you can say that someone has forced other people to hate. Everybody has their own mind, everyone can have their own opinion, but at the same time, like I just said there, with negative headlines coming out around Erik ten Hag and coming out around Manchester United, ones that aren't true, and let me be very clear about this. It's not snowflake land when you can never say anything negative about anyone. You know, I feel like when there's poor performances on the pitch, you should be able to call it out and you should be able to say how it is. 100%, I understand that. But it's when it's headlines based off stuff that isn't true or is blurring the lines between whether it is true or not, and there's kind of uncertainty in it. That is where I think it can be toxic for people that are just, you know, nipping onto social media or looking through the headlines because they are naive and they will fall into that trap and start to believe it, and that's what feeds into negativity. So I do think it is very different because you can have an opinion on factual evidence, but it's when you're putting stuff out there for the world to see where is it actually true. There is a lot of question marks around that. EJ Philly says, why don't the mainstream write about Shaw, who hasn't played for United since February? Well, I would say, to be honest with you, I don't watch that much mainstream stuff. I watch a lot of fan content on YouTube. Obviously, the United Stand, my community, we do it every single day. What I do watch is I watch Monday Night Football, and I really like it, and I watch Match of the Day. They're like the two things that I'm like, that's sort of the mainstream that I get. And I'm going to be honest, like, I have different opinions to Mark. I really like Alan Shearer. I think his punditry is really good. I really like it. I really like Gary Neville and Carragher on Monday Night Football. I enjoy watching that analysis, and I know Mark doesn't feel like that way. Everybody else has different opinions, but that's my honest viewpoint. But sometimes I sit there and I watch it and I think, that's not right. Why are you only calling out that? Why are you not saying about this? Yeah, but I'm sure some people sit down and watch the United Stand and say, why is Beth, defending Bruno again? Why is Beth not calling out this? Everybody has different opinions and everyone has a different way to the way that they see things. But what I would say, and this is the absolute truth, is that for some reason in England, foreign players get 10 times more criticism than what English players get. 10 times. The treatment in the media of Anthony compared to Sancho is massive. I feel like in the fan base, they get similar. Like in the fan base that I see online, people are quite, online and in the community, I see people being very fair with it. I don't see an English bias, but for some reason in the mainstream media, like you say, it does feel like, foreign players get 10 times more criticism. It does feel that way. It's like, I'm trying to think of other examples. Pogba was an absolutely massive one. And I mean, I always wanted Pogba to work out. It never did. Every single season I was like, yes, Pogba. Because I thought he was so talented, like genuinely so talented. And I always thought I could see that, he was a brilliant player, but I always thought he could be even better, getting a consistent run of form together. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. And in the end, I wasn't really happy with the way Pogba conducted himself and everything, and the way it happened with that. I had a lot of criticism of Pogba, but the way he got absolutely annihilated in the media, the way Anthony Martial got annihilated in the media, it does feel that way sometimes. And that's just kind of the way that English football is in the mainstream media, but it shouldn't be the case. Everybody should get fair treatment, in my opinion. It's like, I love Mason Mount. I really want Mason Mount to work out at Manchester United. I think he's a quality player, an absolutely quality player. Unfortunately, he's not been able to get a consistent run because of injuries. But nobody talks about Mason Mount. Nobody talks about Mason Mount in the mainstream media and his injuries and how, we spent 60 million on it. But then if that was a midfielder we'd brought in from Ajax or the Dutch league and they hadn't been able to get a run of form together, there'd be comments about it every single day. So I do get that, and I do understand where people are coming from when they make them comments, but unfortunately that is just the way it is. And all I can say is, in this community, we're never like that. I can honestly say, and people say this all the time to me, people say, give the United Stand an interview and they'll protect you and all this sort of stuff. And for me, it's not about protection and it's not about going in on any players. I'm a Manchester United fan. I have a season ticket. I've had a season ticket for a very long time. All I want is Manchester United to play well on the pitch. And I love talking about football. I love discussing football. I love having therapy, the therapy stand with you guys. I love it. So sometimes, do I go a little bit OTT after a game? I'm a fan. That can happen. Sometimes do I say something and the next day I'm like, oh, should I have really said that? Yeah, that can happen. But also, when players are doing super well, I'm the first ones to back them. And people will take the mick out of me. People in the comments like, oh, Beth's so delusional, as if she thinks Bruno is this good, as if she thinks this is this good. I'm just a fan kind of getting lost in the hype of all you guys. And then when it's bad, sometimes you can over-exaggerate that as well. And that's just the way it is. That's why I love fan content and I love our community, because sometimes you do get people, maybe, going a little bit extreme, but that's human nature. Nobody's robots. It's human emotion and it's real. And that's why I do love fan content as well. Kind of went off on an absolute tangent there with that one, but that's kind of where I'm at in terms of Manchester United now. It does feel like everybody against the world, and I just hope the team and Erik ten Hag can repay the loyal supporters, because the amount of fans that have gone to war for Erik ten Hag over the summer, gone to war for Erik ten Hag after the FA Cup final, I have laid criticism on multiple players in that team. There's multiple players that I don't think have been as good as what they can be. And I've laid criticism onto Ten Hag as well, but ultimately, I've also backed Erik Ten Hag to succeed. But for example, like the fans that constantly, you know, back and support the players, because we do have a loyal fan base, they deserve to see something back, and I just kind of hope that they can repay that. What the thing is for me, a lot of it as well, is of course I want Manchester United to win. That's the main thing. I'm a United fan, but the main thing for me is I don't want the haters to win. Like, you're the people that every single day I just hear constant, you know, negativity and rubbish stories surrounding Manchester United. I see it, you know, on all different sort of platforms. I just like, don't let that win. Please don't let that win. And that's why I want the team to be successful as well. Patrick Hayes says, how can we end up with Anthony instead of Kudus? For that amount of money and his numbers were not good in the Eredivisie, there are many better right wingers. That is a good super chat, exactly. Criticism, but it's based on the truth. Nobody can understand why Kudus wasn't at the forefront of Erik Ten Hag's mind, considering he coached both and he's seen them both in training, he's seen them both play for Ajax. Erik Ten Hag, I'd love for him to be in an interview and to be asked about that situation. Don't think it'll ever happen, but I'd love a question and answer on that, because what did Erik Ten Hag see behind the scenes which made him think it has to be Anthony, and didn't really seem to fancy Kudus at all, even though he's available and he was available for cheaper? What was it? Because there must be something. Like, there must be something. It's not as if, you know, Anthony's got Erik Ten Hag, you know, held at gunpoint and be like, you must force Manchester United to take me. Like, Erik Ten Hag wanted Anthony at Manchester United, and there must be a reason for that. We've not seen it so far because, you know, the amount of money, considering the amount of output, it's not been enough. And Kudus has been excellent for West Ham, but there must be something, and I'd love to know what it is. So that'd be a really good question for Erik Ten Hag to get asked in an interview, but it's just, you know, whether that'll ever be allowed and whether that ever happens. But anyway, guys, look, ended up going on a little bit of a rant there. What I'm basically trying to say is, I have so many, I mean, I won't go over it again. For example, Ricky, I speak to him probably every single day about Manchester United. I love to speak to Ricky about Manchester United, and I love to speak to him about football. I love to see his insight, as much as, you know, we take the mick and we say, you know, what's Ricky been smoking today? And a lot of his opinions I don't agree with, but I see where he's coming from. I see his insight. I see the way he watches the game. I see how he rewatches the game about 3 times over and analyses it. He's football mad, so I love speaking to him about it. But we disagree on most topics. But I respect his opinion, and we have these debates. That's what football's about. But if it's based on, you know, your real opinion based on factual evidence, I'm all here for it, because that's the way football should be. So I don't want people to get it confused. I'm not saying it just has to be all sunshine and rainbows, because that's absolutely not the case. But I just think negative stories that aren't truthful are damaging to the dressing room, are damaging to, you know, Erik Ten Hag, and it is frustrating to see. It is frustrating to see. But look, everyone, thank you so much for getting on the show with me. Thank you for all the comments coming in. Seeing loads of people kind of talking about this international break and what, you know, Manchester United have kind of had to endure over it. And the only way that Manchester United can stop it is they've got to bounce back, and we have to win against Southampton. We have to, or else the knives will be properly sharpened. And you know what? You can't hold any excuses for Manchester United or Erik Ten Hag or the team. They have to win at Southampton. They have to, you know, especially after the start we've had. It has to be done. But look, everyone, thank you for watching. Make sure you hit a like on the video before you go. Subscribe to the channel. Any breaking news, we'll be bringing it to you here on the United Stand. If not, Mark will be back for the 8 PM show. But look, thank you so many times for tuning in. Thank you for all your comments, and we'll see you on the next one.